Welcome back to another episode of Alignment Academy. It's your host, Kristen. And if you're new here, I want to give you the warmest welcome. I'm so happy you found me. I'm so happy you're here. Know that it's not by accident. You are meant to be here. Spirit, God, source, whatever you want to call it, guided you here because there's a message for you. And I really, really, truly believe that. I am really excited to be back in my home with you guys because even though we've up-leveled the podcast, we've really had a glow up internally, externally with the podcast. I know a lot of you love the in my house, cozy home episodes. And so my promise to you is that they're not going anywhere. They're still going to be put in here and there, and we're still going to have our little moment together. So don't you worry. We do have this little cute corner that I've set up. One thing about me though is I feel like we need to make a little deal. If I'm recording at home, you need to let me be comfy, cozy, in a comfy outfit. So I just want to keep it real. We're not going to be super dressed up. It's not going to be fancy. You guys know that I keep it real. I keep it authentic, all that stuff. So that's my only ask from you. But other than that, I'm really, really excited to, just have this time together. If you really are new to me and you don't know me, I had my spiritual awakening when I was 17. I'm 29 now. I've been on the path for years and years and years. And I feel like this path chose me. I used to be a corporate girly. Then I was a yoga teacher, then I was an entrepreneur and tried to start a whole bunch of businesses that didn't work. And now I am a podcaster, a coach, a content creator, a retreat host, all that good stuff. One of my biggest values is integrity, meaning if I am going to tell you guys to do something, if I'm going to sit here on my little platform and teach something, you better bet that behind the scenes, I am being that person in real life. I really live, breathe integrity. And one of the places that I really try to practice that is, this year and last year, I really started hosting retreats. And even when I started hosting retreats, I was like, I need to go on more retreats. Like I need to go experience the magic that is in that retreat world. And so I remember the beginning of last year looking for a retreat to go to. To be honest, I couldn't find one. And I'm not talking about like Joe Dispenza retreats because those are they are a retreat, but like it's a different type of retreat. It's a meditation retreat. I was looking for like a community, like girls, ceremony, things like that. I couldn't find a good one that I wanted to go to. Obviously, you guys know I went to Costa Rica like a couple years ago now, but I wanted to go to another one that was just a little deeper and, scratched a soul itch that I was feeling. At the end of last season, you guys know that I didn't even know that it was the last season because I was like, I don't know, guys. I just booked a trip to Peru. I'm going and see you later. Peru truly changed me from the inside out. I feel like a completely different version of myself after that trip. I feel so reinvigorated with my purpose. I feel so much closer to God. I feel closer to Pachamama, Mother Earth. I feel like I healed so much with the masculine. There were so many things that transformed me inside and out in Peru. And so this episode, we are going to talk all about what the fuck happened in Peru. I'm going to try to give you all the tea. And if I'm being completely honest, it's so funny because this Peru trip, obviously I came back from Peru and everyone was like, how was it? How was it? And I've only told one of my friends about the whole entire trip, about my whole entire ceremony, simply because it felt too overwhelming to unpack. And I even put this episode off for a long time because I was like, there is so much that happened. How am I ever supposed to put the magic that was Peru into words? It felt nearly impossible. And if you've ever done a mushroom trip, if you've ever done any plant medicine ceremony, you know that the hardest part is trying to put what you experienced in your mind into words because there are no words from it. And it was funny when I came back to California, I went back to Florida right after Peru. And when I came back to California, I went on a New Year's trip with some of my guy friends and a couple of my girlfriends. And they kept on asking me, how is Peru? And I kept on just being, it was good. It was good. It was good. And they made a joke. They were like, Kristen doesn't want to talk about Peru. All she says is it's good. And I was like, you guys just don't get it. Like, we're on a New Year's trip. It's not a time to have a super in-depth conversation about all the ceremony that I experienced Peru. It's just not the time or space. And it was just such a deep thing. I felt like I wanted to save it for this podcast. So honestly, I'm giving you guys all of the tea. I'm not leaving anything out because there's nothing to leave out. I want to share about what the fuck happened in Peru, all the ceremony that I experienced, and yeah, give you as much as I can. I do have my notes here, so I might be looking down because there's no way for me to remember anything at all. I want to start by saying that like I'm actually not that big of a travel girly. Like I do love travel, but I love traveling for work. Like I love going to Costa Rica to host a retreat there. I love doing, like, all my friends know that about me. They're like, Kristen likes to travel, but not for that long. And that's my Virgo moon. Like, I like being grounded. I like having a home. I like being set up in my coziness and just having a routine, having the gym I go to, all that stuff. And so, to be honest, one of the most surprising things, in my opinion, was just how much I loved Peru from the moment I got there. It just felt like I had been there from before, and it felt like a soul home. From the moment I landed, it just felt clean. Like the energy felt so clean. On day 1 and day 2, obviously we set our intentions. I remember we were sitting in a sauna all around, and there was actually 2 guys and 2 girls on the retreat. And we were sitting in the sauna and we were just going around and talking about our intentions. And my intentions for this whole entire retreat was to heal my relationship with the divine masculine, come into deeper levels of love, be the embodiment of love, clear any blocks from being my higher self, and prepare myself for love and divine partnership eventually. So just so you know, that's kind of the themes that came up and a lot of the work that I did around that trip. Now, the thing about plant medicine ceremonies and the thing about big soul experiences is the ceremony starts much before you actually are in the official ceremony, especially with any plant medicine. Something that you should know is that plant medicine is completely psychic, meaning it's psychic. It knows energy. It can read energy. It knows exactly what you need. It also knows how many trips you're going to do. It knows if you're going to do this trip before, this trip after, blah, 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 blah. Now, in order for you to really understand what happened in this trip, I do have to tell you what happened before the trip. So as you guys know, I signed up for this Peru retreat like 5-6 days before I was supposed to go. And it was like a couple days after Thanksgiving. So I signed up for this retreat, but the night before I signed up for the retreat, I wanted to do a mushroom trip. And you guys know I host mushroom retreats, and I wanted to take some of the mushrooms from the batch that I was going to serve at my mushroom trip, because I always like to take the mushrooms before I serve them. So the night before I go to Peru, and again, remember, plant medicine is completely psychic. The night before I go to Peru, I sit in my little cozy house, literally right here. I'm sitting on my couch. I'm watching the sunset. I take 4 grams of mushrooms and I'm ready to blast off. I'm ready to go wherever God needs me to go. Heal whatever God needs me to heal. I am mentally prepared. I have blocked off the weekend. You know, when you're going into a trip, like, it takes some mental prep. Like, you're ready, right? Anyway, I take it and I'm sitting here for an hour and I don't feel a thing. I don't feel a single thing. And I'm like, what the heck? So I sit here for another hour. Again, I don't feel a thing. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. All right. I don't think that this is going to happen. So I realized in that moment that I'm not going to trip. I'm not going to have a mushroom trip. And I was really disappointed. And simultaneously, I knew that everything that has to do with plant medicine, when you're taking plant medicine, it's all on purpose. Like, it's so synchronistic, and it feels like it's even more synchronistic than like all of life. Like just anything to do with plant medicine, it's such a ceremony. The whole thing is a ceremony. So I was pissed. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, damn, I was ready to go in, but I knew that I would get it eventually. At this point, I had not signed up for the Peru retreat. And to be honest, I was kind of waiting to see what happened in the trip to see if I was okay to go. Because sometimes you go into a trip and you have so much to unpack that you're like, I don't need another trip right away, right? I was kind of like waiting. I was like, I don't know, like, we'll see. And so after that, I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to Peru. I do feel like I need an experience right now, and I've been feeling called, and this was just further confirmation that I need to go to Peru. As I'm deciding to go to Peru, I'm sending Daniela, the retreat host, and somebody that I call a mentor now, so I might mention Daniela. She's the person who put on the retreat, and I love her and can't recommend her retreats enough. But I'm voice noting Daniela, and I'm like, okay, this crazy thing happened. I'm in. I can't believe that this just happened, but like, I took mushrooms, nothing happened. and I just am super excited to come do a Wachuma ceremony. I feel like I really need to be held in ceremony, and I'm just so excited to be supported by you. And I said that, and it was like Kristen wasn't saying that. I didn't actually logically believe that I needed to be held in ceremony, but my higher self like came through and spoke into this voice note. So I'm listening to the voice note back and I'm like, wait, what? Oh, huh? Oh my God, that's why it needed to happen. I needed to be held in ceremony. I didn't need to do this ceremony alone. And to be honest, I've done a lot of plant medicine ceremonies alone. I've held myself through it, and that was my medicine. It was my medicine mostly because with my breakup, like there was so much codependence to heal that I wanted to hold myself through a lot of ceremonies. But it was almost like this new level and this new layer of my healing was to be held in ceremony and not having to do it alone. That happens before the trip. And then I go and I get to Peru, and I just am so excited. I feel so good. And we are doing 2 Wachuma ceremonies. So let's just do a little recap on what Wachuma is, because I know a lot of people don't know. And to be fair, I didn't really know either. And I know a lot of people were like, did you do an ayahuasca ceremony? Like, what were you doing in Peru? I did not do ayahuasca. I didn't do anything other than Wachuma. We had a hape ceremony. We had a lot of ceremonies, but the only plant medicine that I did do some hape, but was Wachuma. I'm going to make a quick assumption about you if you listen to Alignment Academy, the podcast, that ever since you were little, you just had this deep feeling that you were meant for big things in this world. You weren't here to be ordinary, but you were here to be a mover and a shaker. Hi, I'm Kristen, and same. Except for years, I was self-sabotaging because even though I felt in my soul that I was here to do extremely big things, I could not stop procrastinating, self-sabotaging, feeling massive amounts of imposter syndrome, and don't forget getting triggered as fuck every single day of my life. And honestly, I didn't know what to do. And then I found inner work. I found energy healing. I found all of the modalities that I still use today. The spiritual tools that I use feel like I found a hack to this universe. Like, the rules don't apply to me because I know how to shift my vibration. I know how to reprogram my subconscious mind. I know how to give myself any beliefs that I want to believe about the world, like money comes easy to me and the rules don't apply to me and I don't need a real job. These are all just beliefs that I believe about myself. If you're similar to me, you know you have a big mission, but you know it's also time to get out of your own way and heal your blocks for good so you can actually just take action on your mission. This is why I created Alignment Academy, the membership. Inside this membership, you are going to get everything from live coaching sessions with me monthly, all of my best-selling heart work meditations and hypnosises. You're going to get all of my energy healing activations to do energy work on yourself anytime you want. Not to mention, as soon as you enroll, you get a library of 9 past masterclasses and 8 on-demand meditations. But the very best part is the people in the community. This is some of the most heart-centered, amazing humans I've ever come in contact with. Honestly, people have made friends in this group. They've met up in person in this group. It's the place to be. This is seriously the only space on the internet that weaves quantum manifestation, inner work, and business to help you quantum leap in your soul's growth and your business growth. If you're serious about healing, getting out of your own way, and taking massive action this year, then join with the link below. See you inside. With Wachuma, we did 2 Wachuma hikes in the 7 days. And Wachuma is called grandfather. Like ayahuasca is called grandmother. Wachuma is called grandfather. Grandfather, Wachuma, which is also known as the San Pedro cactus, really deals with relational healing and matters of the heart. It brings you back to divine love. It brings you back to your connection with nature. And it really like purifies the heart, if that makes sense. Like that's what I felt like it was doing. It's like purifying your heart to be connected and to be a match to divine love. And it's interesting because ayahuasca is called grandmother, Wachuma is called grandfather, and then mushrooms are said to be like the children of grandfather, little mushroom allies, the children. And I will say Wachuma did have this more grandfather energy, this like stability, divine love, divine masculine. And it was so interesting that I was going and communing with Wachuma to heal my relationship with that masculine. when you do Wachuma, you go on a Wachuma hike, and it also lasts a lot longer than mushrooms. And I'm just referring to mushrooms a lot because that's my medicine. That's the medicine that I work with. That's the medicine I feel the most close with. And so that's like all I really had to compare it to. It's like an 11-hour trip. And again, you're hiking through the Andes Mountains on this trip. When you do a Wachuma ceremony, there's 4 altars that you pray at over the hike. So you get on the hike, you set up the first altar, you go, you hike more, you set up the second altar, and like this is like as a group, right? And every altar has like a different theme or a different intention. I don't really like the word theme. I like the word intention. It has a different intention. So at the first altar, you are praying to the spirit of gratitude and the element of fire. On the second altar, you are praying to the element of water and the spirit of clarity. On the third altar, element of air and spirit of unity. And then the fourth altar, you're praying to the element of earth and the spirit of love. And the idea is that on the first 2 altars, you're really praying and you're thinking and you're cleansing a lot of yourself and your own matters. And then the second 2 altars with love and unity, you're praying for you're praying for your family, your friends, your brothers and sisters around the world. And it also makes sense because if you're not in communion and right relation with yourself, you're not going to be able to be in right relationship with the rest of the world, with your brothers and sisters, and to really be in that headspace to be able to pray from a clear place for your brothers and sisters around the world. That's kind of the setup of a Wachuma ceremony. There's 4 altars. And the reason I'm telling you this is because the bulk of my ceremonies do have to do with the 4 altars. So you kind of need to know like what I'm talking about. Wachuma feels for me harder and easier than mushrooms in the sense that I did feel like it was harder because with mushrooms, like you go into a different dimension. And so even though you're having a really hard trip, like you're not all there. Whereas Wachuma, you are still completely in your body. It's not super psychedelic. It's very like in your head, in your heart, in your body, in your brain almost even. Like you're having a lot of revelations, you're thinking about a lot of things. Like it's just so different. It's not like a super psychedelic. You're not seeing things. It's a very, I would say like if you're new to the plant medicine world, it's actually a good one to start with because it's just not super psychedelic and like you're not going to be like, like I'm losing my mind type thing. So anyway, I'm going into this ceremony and I really was curious what was going to happen because to be honest, a lot of my plant medicine ceremonies last year were a lot about my breakup. Like there was so much that I was still dealing with that. And I feel completely over that now that I'm like, I know that it's not going to be that, like that's not going to be what this is for me. I don't know what it's going to be. Like it feels like it's almost going to be deeper. And I knew it was going to be, again, the divine masculine, matters of the heart. So I just knew that there was stuff there and I was ready. I was ready to go in. So anyway, day 3, we have our first Wachuma ceremony. And I'm going to say that I had the roughest trip. Everyone knew, everyone could tell I had the roughest trip. So Wachuma doesn't make everyone purge, but that could be something that happens is you feel super nauseous and you purge. And again, I want to remind you that you are hiking through the Andes Mountains. So it's cold, it's raining, you're hiking through the Andes Mountains, you're praying, and it's a lot going on. Okay, so let's start at ceremony 1. Ceremony 1, I'm ready. We take the medicine, and as soon as we take it, I feel massively nauseous. Like I remember having to we're sitting at the altar and like we're trying to sit up, and I remember just having to lay down and being like, I do not feel well. We're done at the first altar. We get up and we start walking to the second altar. We start hiking, and I immediately am like, don't feel right, feel so nauseous, and I just want to start crying. And I just start crying and crying and crying, and I can't stop crying. And all I can think about when I'm crying is, oh my God, I'm so mean to myself. I'm so hard on myself. All I do is beat myself up in my head. Like, why am I so mean to myself? And I just cry for my inner child. Everyone's just kind of like giving me tissues. And the other thing is it's pretty silent. Like you're supposed to let people be in their own, in their own process. So it's not like people are like talking to me or anything. Like I'm just walking and crying. And all of a sudden I'm like, I gotta puke. I like go over to the side and I purge so hard. Like I'm talking everything in my stomach for the last 5 days type purge, like just kept coming out and kept coming out. These purges were interesting though, because as soon as I was throwing up, I knew exactly what I was throwing up. I could feel it coming out of my body. In purge 1, I was just feeling all the loneliness my inner child felt when I was younger, because my parents had a really long divorce, and I think I was around 3rd to 6th, 7th grade. It was like that long. It was like a very long divorce. And I remember just feeling so alone during this divorce. And my dad, you know, he cheated on my mom with his secretary. So he was like kind of out of the picture, kind of not. My mom was going through a divorce, and her husband of 25 years just cheated on her. She was barely there, and I don't blame her for that. Like I can't imagine what that was like. Like she was just trying to get by. I remember she was like super skinny. She just like she couldn't eat. Like I just remember that she was just not in good shape. Like she definitely wasn't in any shape to be emotionally there for a child. And then my sisters, I have 2 older sisters, and they're very close in age. And so they were going to the same school. They were best friends. They had the same friends. And then I was just like the youngest, and I like had no one. And it was really, 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 really lonely. Like I remember just feeling so alone, and like I had no one in the world, and nobody loved me. And so I had to just find other ways to find love. And I was just crying for that little girl. And I just remember squatting. Wow, I'm getting emotional. Like I remember squatting on the side of the Andes Mountain, and Daniela sitting next to me, and I was just like, I'm so alone. Like I feel so bad for my inner child. She was so alone. She had no one. Like she had no one. I kind of got that out, and I just felt like I got to stop being so mean to myself. I'm ready to be nice to myself. I'm ready to be gentle with myself. I'm ready to really love myself at the deepest level and love this little girl inside of me. It was crazy. It was like some of the deepest inner child work that I've ever done. And you guys know I fucking teach inner child work. I live, breathe inner child work. And the fact that it was lodged so deeply in there is like one of the reasons I freaking love plant medicine. It gets to the root of things. It really pulls things from the root and just changes you. It really changes you. So anyway, I purge, I cry, I feel okay. Daniela was so beautiful. She blesses like my purge. She puts rose petals over it, and then we keep walking. We go to the altar 2, and I'm hoping that I'm done, but baby, I was not done. After altar 2, I feel nauseous as fuck again. I remember sitting on the side of the earth, sitting on Pachamama, just like laying wherever I could. My head is on a rock. I'm on the ground, and I'm like, I feel so sick. I still feel so nauseous. I am not okay. And the second purge is the most fuzzy in my head, because this is the time where, guess what happens? I am seeing full sacred geometry. I am closing my eyes and seeing sacred geometry. I feel like I am not in my body, to the point where I feel like I'm on mushrooms. I am looking at Daniela, I'm looking at all the guides, and I'm like, is it normal to be seeing sacred geometry? Because I know that this is not a psychedelic. So I wasn't expecting to see any sacred geometry, any psychedelics. And they're like, that doesn't usually happen. No. And I go, Daniela, I feel like I'm on mushrooms right now. I feel like I'm on a full mushroom trip. And it felt like that out of body experience where your consciousness was elsewhere. And I don't really remember this part of the trip that well. And like with a mushroom trip, you don't really get to take it all with you. Like you don't remember all of it. And she goes, mushrooms are all around you. I think the mushrooms that you took at your house are coming back in now to work with you. I am in a full mushroom trip now. And a Wachuma trip. I am like just journeying to different dimensions. I really don't remember too much what happened, but all I remember is I felt super nauseous, and I felt super like I needed to be in my own energy because I was feeling everyone's stuff. There was a point when we're at altar 2 where, again, like I said, there was 2 men and there was 2 girls on the retreat. And one of the men there, he was like this like 62-year-old man. He was super heart-centered. He was there because he was going through a divorce, and he just wanted to like clear his heart. And I remember just like looking at him, and he always would like make sure that I was okay. And like he would always like, if I was holding back, like he would stay back too. And I just remember like looking at him and being like, you know, you're like a really good man. Like I wish my dad was more like you. And he starts like, I'm getting emotional because it was just such a beautiful moment. Like he starts crying, and he was just like, he's also thinking about his kids. And I guess, he had whatever happened. I don't know what happened with his kids, but he's just like, I just look at you like a daughter too, Kristen. You're so amazing. I haven't always been a good man. Like, I'm really working on it. Like, I'm really doing my best. And I was just like, I think I can tell how hard you're trying. And like, I just want to say, like, I really admire that. And we just had this beautiful moment on the Wachuma ceremony. And that's the thing about these ceremonies, is like every moment is part of the ceremony. Every moment is so special, and there's so much meaning embedded and weaved into every single moment. After that, I purge again. All I remember is purging just like remnants of men letting me down, of parts of me that didn't feel worthy in my last relationship. And I don't really remember exactly what this one was about, but I just remember it was about the masculine. I just felt like I was just purging up something that had to do with the masculine, and a lot of like the current stuff too. I do remember there was some that was like how I related to men and how I thought about them, like almost thinking that they were better than me or putting them on a pedestal or like begging for their love, things like that. And I did have like quite a big second purge. So that was the second purge I had. And again, it was at altar 2. During this time too, there was another guy named Tremon, and I just remember like laying on the earth, like I just puked and my shoes are untied and I'm like disgusting, like my hair's everywhere. And I just like remember asking him like, Tremon, can you tie my shoe? And he's like, of course, my love, like I will tie your shoe. And it was really interesting because, as you guys know, I'm working on my feminine energy, but part of my feminine energy is like allowing the masculine to support you. And so it felt very symbolic in the ceremony how Tony, the older guy, was like there and like waiting for me to make sure that I wasn't like too far behind on the group. And then we had our little moment where he said I felt like a daughter, and I told him he was a beautiful father figure. And then like Tremon tying my shoes and helping me and like giving me water when I needed it. It was like I needed to be held in that masculine container, in that masculine way, and like allow myself to be taken care of. Things that I never really got as a little girl. Like it was like healing me on a cellular level. Quick interruption to this episode because I have to tell you something. And what I have to tell you is I'm literally freaking obsessed with doing energy work. This has been one of my favorite modalities that I've added to my spiritual toolbox to shift my energy really freaking quickly. And as you guys have learned in Alignment Academy, this is a vibrational based universe, meaning as your energy shifts, the reflections in your life also shift. People that you're attracting, the experiences that you're attracting, the money you make, literally everything shifts. In Alignment Academy, my membership, part of it is that there are guided energy works added to the portal every single month. And I really want you to be able to experience this energy work because, guys, it literally works so quick. Your reality shifts so quick. The testimonials have been insane inside of Alignment Academy. So because you're a listener of Alignment Academy, I'm offering you a free guided energy work session in exchange for rating and reviewing the podcast. All you have to do is follow my podcast Instagram at Alignment Academy Pod on Instagram. And then after you've rated and reviewed the podcast, just screenshot it, send me a DM on Alignment Academy Pod, and I'll send you the link to download your free guided energy work. During this energy healing session, we're going to be working on your confidence and your self-love. When you are filled with your own confidence and your own self-love, you are magnetic as fuck to the rest of the world. Magnetism is created when we are so filled up with love for ourselves. It's also created when we just really fuck with ourselves super hard. Like think about really magnetic people. They're not asking other people to like them or validate them. They're just like, I really fuck with me. And if you want to too, then yay. And if not, then it's all good. I can't wait for you to try this energy healing. Please DM me and let me know how it goes. And now let's get back to the episode. Then we're at altar 3. I'm laying on the earth again. I remember being like in and out of consciousness, and we're about to walk to altar 4. And I'm like, I got one more puke left in me. Yep. I got a puke again. And we're almost there. And all of a sudden, I just purge again. I let it go. I puke. And all I can feel is my grandmother all around me. So I've told you guys about my grandmother before. She's very close to God, super psychic, amazing woman. My grandmother endured a lot of trauma, like with the men too. You know, my family's from Israel. And I think that if you're not familiar with like the Middle East culture, men in that culture treat women like trash. They talk down to them. Like there's even parts of the culture where like men eat first, things like that. Like they just don't respect women. Women are just like there to cater to them type thing. My grandmother had a lot of trauma because like she had a fiance in Turkey that she loved, and then she like couldn't marry him for some reason, and then she married my grandpa, and my grandpa didn't always treat my grandmother with the most respect, and my grandma didn't really want to be in that marriage for a lot of it, but she couldn't leave. She had 6 kids. There was just reasons that she couldn't leave, or she chose not to, or whatever you want to say. So anyway, I was very close to my grandmother when I was little. She was like my favorite person in the world, especially when I was going through that lonely period. It felt almost like she was the only person I had. I remember calling her during all those lonely moments, and she was the only person I would call. When I was lonely and like I had no one, I would call my grandma, but my grandma lived like 40 minutes away from me, so I couldn't always go to her house. But I spent many weekends at my grandma's house. I would sleep over there, to the point where my dad used to get mad that I would never want to come home because I loved my grandma so much. So anyway, I purge on the third time. We're on the way to the 4th altar, and I feel my grandmother all around me. And her phone number pops into my head, and it was 904-471-2613. And her phone number pops into my head because she was psychically telling, like, call on me, like, call me, I'm here. Remember my phone number? I'm here. And I remember looking at the mountains and feeling her as I purge. And I'm looking at my puke, and all I can feel is like disgust. I feel disgust for how the men have treated the woman in my family. I feel disgust for the fact that my family and the woman in my family couldn't always leave. I feel disgust for how they had to allow it. I felt total and utter disgust for men disrespecting the woman with the pure hearts, and the woman who kept the family together and gave their life to their kids and their children and their family, and just getting treated like shit. I just felt disgust from it. And I knew I was clearing so many old timelines and purging ancestral wounds of like, I can never stand for this. I can't stand for how men treat the woman in my family. And I felt like I was clearing it for all of them. And, you know, even my mom, like my dad cheated on her and like left her after 25 years and then wanted to stay with her and got mad when she didn't want to stay, like just really effed up things, right? And so it was just like I was clearing all of this ancestral trauma. After I'm done purging, I look up and I'm just looking out at this mountain. Like I'm just looking at this huge mountain. And when my grandmother was dying, I remember crying, sitting on her hospital bed, being like, Tata, I don't want you to go. Tata is grandma in Arabic. And she goes, she had very bad dementia, but she came back and she said, she called us Tata too. She goes, Tata, stop crying. Stop crying, Tata. I'm not going anywhere. In fact, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to be in the air you breathe. I'm going to be in the mountains. I'm going to be in the trees. Stop it, Tata. Don't cry. I'm going home. And I just remember looking out at the mountain and I'm like, oh my God, she's right here. Like she's in the air, she's in the mountains, she's in the flowers, she's in the grass. Oh, it's making me emotional. And I just felt like, oh my God, I'm healing this for you. I'm on this hike for you. I'm clearing this for you. And it was just like deep ancestral healing. I was tired at this point. I'm weak. I'm tired. I'm sick of puking. I'm sick of feeling nauseous. And I'm like, God, I just want this to be over. Like, I just need to get to altar 4. And everyone, you know, I'm holding up the entire group at this point. And, you know, other people are in their process. I just was not really available to see their process because I was a little busy. And I knew that like they were all trying to get to altar 4 because like the sun's going down at this point. You know, we start at like 8 a.m. and it's like, I don't know, 4 p.m. at this point. So I've been puking all day long. And I'm walking up to altar 4. The group is in a circle playing a song, a really beautiful ceremonial song in this valley. It's green. There's mountains everywhere. There's llamas and the Quechua people, which are the local people, all around because it's like at the end of the base of the mountain. And it just felt like the most beautiful moment. It felt like I was walking into heaven. I mean, they're literally sitting in a circle singing a song and I'm walking up. And it just felt like God was telling me, look, the path is perfect. All paths lead back to this, lead back to love. Like there's love at the end of every hardship. In the end, you find more love. In the end, you find more of yourself. In the end, you find me. You find God. And I just see this vision and I break down in tears. I literally like sat on the ground and I just like started bawling my eyes out because I felt God within me. I felt it all around me. It felt like the most beautiful, perfect moment to end the trip. We get back to the fourth altar. We end from there, but that was like the accumulation of my first trip. And I think just to recap, the things that I learned on this is I needed to be held. And I need to allow myself to be held by masculine and men. There's always more inner child healing to do. And this is what I wrote. The path is perfect. Nothing is wrong. You are exactly where you're meant to be. Those were my final words. So that was really, really the first trip. After that, I felt like I needed to integrate for a few days. And then in the next few days, we had another Wachuma ceremony. And like I said, Wachuma is completely psychic. So it knows like how many ceremonies you have. And, it usually wraps things up pretty well. Like if things feel unfinished in the first trip, it will like wrap it up in the second trip. And every trip is very different. It's just like anything. It's like you might not purge in the second one. You might get a completely different experience. And that was definitely what happened for me. Like I felt like it was just a completely different experience. So I'm going to not do a really deep dive into the second trip because honestly, there wasn't as much that happened. But I really felt like for me, the second ceremony was about anchoring into deeper levels of worthiness. And so the second trip was interesting where I wasn't purging. I felt okay. I just felt really mentally uncomfortable the whole time. Wasn't feeling like I was in my heart. I was feeling a lot of like thought forms. I was feeling a lot of negative thoughts. And I think it was a lot of these unconscious programs that were still running in my mind coming to the forefront to be purged out. That's kind of what I got from it. I was feeling a lot of grief. This is probably like the biggest thing that happened. So I was feeling a lot of grief and I was like, what is this grief from? Like, I'm not grieving my breakup anymore. I'm not grieving my ex. Like, where is this grief coming from? And so I close my eyes and I'm laying on the earth at one point. And all I see is like, I ask my guides, I'm like, where is this grief coming from? What is this grief about? And what happens is I see my ex come into my brain. I wasn't grieving him, but the vision I got is me and him are standing face to face. I can tell we're about to part ways. Like it's like the breakup. I can tell it's like symbolizing the breakup. And he hands me this rose of unworthiness. And I take that rose and then I leave and he leaves and I go and I just am taking it into all these different areas of my life. And so my guides show me that even though you are not grieving him, even though this doesn't have to do with him, what you're still carrying from that breakup is this feeling of unworthiness inside of you, is this feeling of just feeling less than. My guides say, what do you want to do with the rose? And I said, I'm ready to let it go. And so I put the rose down on the earth and I give it to the earth and I let it be recycled back into love. And that was really what the second ceremony was about for me. It was realizing that even though I was over it, I felt like I was over it, I wasn't thinking about him, there was still this deeper energetic layer that I was carrying around of like feeling unworthy from everything that happened with the breakup. And to be honest, I have to say that felt accurate. Even my friends, they were like, Kristen, I could tell. When the friend that I told about this entire trip, she was like, this makes so much sense, Kristen, because like I could tell you were over the breakup, but there was still this weird thing you had with like dating and men that like you just couldn't clear completely. And when I came back, I felt completely different to the point where people were like, you feel different. Like you feel in your worth. You feel grounded in who you are. You feel like you know who the fuck you are. And that's how I feel. The biggest takeaway from that was I cannot settle or allow anyone to treat me less than a fucking queen. I'm just not available for it. There were even small things like people in my DMs that like asked me to go on a date but then never followed up, or like men who gave me a little bit of interest but like not anything more than that, but I would be thinking about them a lot and I would be like giving them mental energy. And what happened after that second trip is like I completely cut cords with all that. I am worthy of more. I'm not allowing men to treat me with little to no respect or even just like give them my energy. I'm just not available for it anymore. And so I feel like the second trip was more gentle and it just wrapped up that feeling and rooting in that feeling of being worthy and feeling like I know who I am and I'm willing to wait for the perfect, right? Like quote unquote, the perfect partner, my next partner. And I'm just not going to settle. So that was my second Wachuma ceremony. What I wrote is, I'm a queen and deserve to be treated as such. Don't give any mental energy or emotional energy to people who don't honor or hold me correctly. So It was really beautiful too, because the rest of the retreat, I felt like the masculine men that were there, one of them was getting divorced and the other one was in a relationship. He was just like going on a spiritual journey himself. They were such amazing examples of like what the divine masculine is. They treated me with respect. They saw my worth. They talked me up. We had deep conversations. Like in every sense of the word, I do feel like my Peru trip helped me heal my relationship with the divine masculine. I don't know how else to say it. I left Peru feeling so clear with who I am and what I'm looking for, in so much reverence with Pachamama and Mother Earth. I rehealed my relationship with prayer and just weaving prayers throughout my life and praying to God and honoring him and giving before I ask. There was just so many things that I learned in Peru. I know we were just recapping the trips, but to be honest, since I've been back in California, I love California, but I've been really missing that energy of Peru. I just feel like there's not as much mental noise. It's easier to feel really close to God, and the people around, the Quechua people and the locals and the people that are even there that are not local, they just honor Mother Earth in a whole different way. You know, they're not asking. They pray to the earth. They pray to Pachamama, to the moon, to the sun. They're not just like, God, give me clients. Like, it's not like that. It's like a deep respect and reverence for this spirit that gives and gives and gives. And when you pray, you can ask for things, but you lay flowers down first. You give to earth and then you take, right? So it just taught me so much and healed my relationship with earth. And I just fucking love Peru. I really want to go back and spend a couple months there. And I never thought I would say that because, like I said, I'm not a huge travel girly. So that was like a very unexpected thing that I experienced. I think the way that I want to end this episode is, you know, Daniela, she's an Akashic record practitioner, one of the most clear channels I've ever been across. And she taught me how to read my Akashic records, and the things that came out of the Akashic records, it's interesting. They didn't feel like, when I was like learning how to open my records and read them, I was like, oh, this is interesting. But then when I read it back, I'm like, wait, this is profound as shit. Like, what the heck? And so I've been having a lot of fun reading the Akashic records and just playing in the records. But yeah, if you want to get a Akashic record reading, I can't recommend Daniela enough. And if you want to go on her retreat, let her know that I sent you. She has one coming up in February, and she hosts them a couple times a year. So I'll stick her handle down below too if you want to follow her, because I love Daniela. She is such a light. I love her. I think what I want to end with is just reading something that I wrote from the records, and it doesn't really have anything to do with my trip, but I thought you guys would be interested in it. So the question I asked the Akash was, what is the best way to attract abundance? And this is what the Akashic record said. Abundance is not what the human mind can conceive, but a point where you place your consciousness on. You can tune into abundance at any moment because abundance is the only true nature of this vibrational reality. To attract abundance, you must train your mind to see it around you. There is no true lack. There's only the projection of not enoughness. Lack is a fear-based construct that comes from the humans feeling separate from the source. When you connect to the source, you will always know abundance. So I thought that was a beautiful little snippet of abundance, because source is wholeness. Source is all that is. It's everything all at once. So when you're connected to the source, there is no lack. There is no separation. You know that you have everything you need in every moment. Peru was amazing. I feel changed now that I'm back in California, and I've been back for about a month. I definitely feel like I'm still integrating, and there's been like an ego death that has been perpetrating and still kind of working with my heart. I got really, really sick the second week I was here for about 10 days, and I felt like I was purging more thought forms and more density out of me. And so I still feel like I'm a little bit integrating the trip, but I also am just so grateful for it. I know that healing was necessary and preparing me for the next thing. And I'm just so grateful for plant medicine. I'm so grateful for plant medicine. Like the fact that we have this tool to get deep into the crevices of our consciousness and pull out the things and the weeds and things we can't see ourselves is just, it's such a beautiful experience. So anyway, Peru is amazing. I don't know if that was interesting for you guys to hear, so let me know. I know that I just blabbed and like told you about what happened, but hopefully it gave you some insights. You guys want to know what happened, so there it is. Anyway, I love you guys. I will see you in the next episode. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions, and I'd love to answer them. Until then, see you next week.